I think that very few would dispute that out of all of the games of the last decade, GTA 5 is one of the most influential. From its very first days, its impact was evident, with it becoming the fastest selling entertainment product when it released. Arguably, the thing that has helped keep the game relevant all these years later is the online mode of the game. GTA Online itself is something which, over its life, has morphed into what is a completely different experience. With the year coming to an end, and once again a big update for it coming out, I feel that now is a good time to look back at the life of GTA Online. To say that GTA Online had a rocky launch would be an understatement. The Rockstar servers were unprepared for the extremely high influx of players on launch day. For most, online was completely unplayable for the first day, with the majority of players being unable to even load into a lobby. These issues would continue into the first few weeks of online's life. Those who were able to get into and remain in a lobby were plagued with bugs and glitches. One of the most prominent made it so several players were unable to complete the mandatory race in the tutorial, making them unable to progress further. Rockstar was quick to act, trying to patch out these issues, but they would continue into the coming weeks. One of the worst issues to face players was that a worrying number of them had their characters randomly deleted, with no hope of them being recovered. In an attempt to calm the community, Rockstar offered 500,000 in-game dollars to those who had played in the earliest days of online. These days, this would not really be much, but back then, this was a rather large amount. The reason that back then money went so far is that in all honesty, on release, online did not actually have much in the way of content, at least when compared to today. There was a decent amount of races, jobs and death matches, but they became repetitive due to the lack of variety. Heists, something which had been greatly hyped up, were absent and would not be added until 2015. There also wasn't much to work towards, with the main desirable thing for most players being an apartment. Sure, there were cars, the tank, and jet, but unless you were willing to cash out on shark cards, it would take ages to get your hands on them, since making money was slow and tedious, far worse than it is today. Though, to be fair, where GG Online shined, and where it has always shined in my opinion, is in the fun that can be had with a group of friends, just messing around, travelling around the map leaving a trail of carnage. Despite its problems, it was clear that the game had extreme potential, and Rockstar would continue to update the game for years to come. The updates in 2013 and 2014 weren't anything special, but going from 2015 onwards, Rockstar seemed to really become creative with what new content they could add into the game. The very first content update to ever be added to GTA Online was the Beach Bum update, which came out in November. There wasn't really anything too great to come with it mainly just being a few new vehicles, cosmetic stuff like clothes, and some jobs. The few weapons and vehicles which were added were also introduced into the story mode at the same time, something which actually happened with most early updates to the game. There would be three different updates which were added in December, the first being the content creator, which was added on the 10th. It was extremely bare bones on release, with it only allowing for the creation of some basic races and death matches. 8 days later, the capture missions were added to the game. On the 24th, the Holiday Gifts update first released, though it admittedly didn't have much in the way of content. The first full year of updates didn't really add much, with most of them just having a few new vehicles, cosmetic items and jobs. 2014 would start off with the Valentine's Day Massacre special, which had a heavy gangster theme, adding a new gun, a new car, as well as a few new death matches. The next four updates, being the Business, the High Life, I'm Not a Hipster, and Independence Day special updates, can be all thrown in together, since none of them really added anything major, with each of them mainly adding similar basic content. Although the High Life update finally allowed players to own more than one property at a time, and the Independence Day special had time-limited content. The first update of the year, which really added new content worth talking about, was the San Andreas Flight School, which came out in August. Alongside four new air vehicles and many new air-based jobs, the flight school was added to the game. It acts as a tutorial of sorts to flying in the game, which in all honesty isn't too hard, but the missions are fun, and it's nice to have the option there for newer players. In October, the Last Team Standing update was released and added to the content creator. The Festive Surprise update returned once more in December, with a few new vehicles and the homing rocket launcher, which is one of the most important weapons ever added to online, especially when considering the current state of weaponized vehicles in modern GTA Online. In March of 2015, we would finally get the promised heists added to the game. There were 5 initial heists, with all of them requiring exactly 4 players, the only exception being the first one which needed 2. The group leader, whose apartment would be used for planning, would have to pay a small startup fee for every heist, each of which has several setup missions to be done first, of the number of missions required going up for each one. Once all of the setups are done, the leader can begin the heist. Before it can begin properly though, the leader must distribute roles to each of the four members and pick how much of the total percentage they get paid. As one could imagine, this can easily lead to a lot of drama within a group of players, since everyone might not agree on how much certain people get paid, though it is normally accepted that the heist leader gets paid a fair amount more as compensation for covering the setup cost. There are rewards for completing the heists, such as doing them all in order and doing them for the first time, which gives cash bonuses. The most challenging of these by far is the Criminal Mastermind Challenge, which requires a group of players to do every single setup and heist of the same group of players without anyone in the group dying even once. The actual quality of these heists do vary in some ways, with most of them being rather good, but one in particular, specifically the Series A heist, being rather boring in my own opinion. Each of the heists has at least one of the new expensive vehicles featured within it, as a way to show off the vehicles and give players a chance to use them. This is a trend which is extremely common in new updates, even if this is most likely done to encourage players to work towards them, or well, more specifically to spend shark cards on them. Interestingly, this is also where none of the new content was actually added to story mode. When talking about GTA Online, something which is often brought up is the concept of the militarization of the game. This is in reference to how, as the years have gone on, Online has added more and more powerful military and futuristic weaponized vehicles, which have gone to completely throw off the balance of the game, and making leveling up in free roam lobbies far harder. You see, while there was powerful military vehicles in release, with the Buzzard helicopter, Rhino tank, and laser jet, all of these could be found in-game either at helicopter pads or the military base. This meant that even if a player had purchased one of these, other players could at least stand a chance of getting the same vehicle and fighting back, even if it would be harder for them since they would have to travel to get the vehicle. I will touch on this a bit later, but the main reason I mention it here is that the heist update is where the idea really begins, since this is the first update that we got several extremely powerful vehicles added all at the same time, even if the majority of these vehicles ended up being rather mild when compared to what would be added later. Out of all the vehicles added in this update, I feel the most prominent were the Armoured Kuruma, the Insurgent Pickup, and of course the Hydra. The Armoured Kuruma is literally a bulletproof car, which makes it perfect for running jobs and heist setups, since most AI struggle to kill players within it. Though the vehicle isn't too OP, since it is not explosive proof and the weapon selection of the driver and passengers is limited, without the use of explosives such as sticky bombs or grenades. The Insurgent is a large vehicle which has a very high resistance to explosives, making it very effective at protecting players while driving around in free roam. The pickup variant is the same, just with a large gun on top, but it is not a personal vehicle so it cannot be used in missions. The Hydra though is by far the most powerful vehicle added in the heist update. It is one of the fastest air vehicles in the game, but despite its speed, it is still able to maintain a high amount of manoeuvrability. Performance-wise, it is very similar to the military jet, just more powerful. The biggest difference is the VTOL capabilities of the Hydra, which essentially allow it to switch between acting like a jet or a helicopter. The Hydra is also surprisingly cheaper to purchase than the laser military jet, though unlike the laser, it cannot be found out in the military base. While new air vehicles added since can be seen to be more powerful, for a long time after its release, the Hydra was arguably the most deadly air vehicle in Online, with it dominating free roam lobbies, and to this day is still a powerhouse. The next update was the two-part Ill-Gotten Gains, with part 1 coming in June and part 2 coming in July. The updates didn't add much except for a fair few vehicles, some of which are just expensive gold-plated versions of previous ones. The second update was also the final update to support the PS3 and Xbox 360, as well as the final update to add almost all of its content to single player. The following update, coming in September, being the Free Modes events, also didn't add much, with it introducing the Rockstar editor to the new generation of consoles, and the PC edition of the game which released early the same year, as well as some new adversary modes and the introduction of Director Mode. The Lowriders update went to add the new Benny's Motorworks garage, along with a series of new customization options and missions. One of the most interesting new features was the interaction menu could now be used to purchase ammo, which made it so you could always get ammo quickly for your favourite guns without the need to travel to a gun store. Other additions of note are the ability to purchase a fourth property and the scene creator being added to director mode. In October, the first ever Halloween surprise update was introduced to the themed events of GTA Online. Not too much is added, with it having 2 new vehicles, a bunch of masks, and the adversary mode slasher. As adversary modes go, this is one of my favourites, with there being one hunter trying to kill the other players within a few minutes before they are given weapons to defend themselves with. The final big update of the year before the Christmas update was Executives and Other Criminals. This update laid the groundwork for basically a large majority of future updates, and how they handled making money through the business system. This is when the ability to become a CEO was added for the first time. Being a CEO allows players to be a part of organisations and act as bodyguards to the CEO, with them getting a small amount of money for being near their boss. Although the amount is reduced each time the CEO is killed. The organisation leader has a series of abilities such as starting CEO missions and challenges, with challenges being doable in free roam. 10 new stilt houses were added, with the property limit being increased to 5. Probably one of the biggest features though was the introduction of the free yachts. Each one of the yachts come with a variety of vehicles, and they act similar to properties with players having the option to spawn in them. Interestingly, there is the option to engage defences, making it so that when walking around the outside of the yacht, players cannot be killed, but also cannot pull out their weapons, though explosives can still destroy the vehicles on the yacht if fired from a far enough away distance. The yacht can also be moved to set points around the map for a small fee. The final update of the year saw the return of the Festive Surprise update, with snow and a new adversary mode, Beast vs Slasher. The first few updates of 2016 aren't really anything noteworthy, with the January update mainly bringing a few new vehicles and the new adversary mode drop zone. The Valentine's event returned with the same gangster theme, new adversary mode, and new cars. The March update was just an expansion of the Lowriders update, although it did also add one of my favourite adversary modes, Sumo. The first proper content update of the year would not come until June, with the further adventures in finance and felony. This is where the first ever business, the crate contraband business, was added. There is a rather large setup cost for it though, since to begin it you need to first purchase an office building, which gives access to several features such as a personal assistant and a laptop, which can then be used to buy a warehouse and start sourcing crates. The crates themselves come in quantities of either 1, 2, or 3, but you need to pay to find their location before doing a free roam mission to retrieve them. It is also more cost effective to buy them in quantities of 3, since those crates end up selling for more. You can source the crates alone, but if you are selling lots of them at once, you will need other players to help you. The players who help you barely get any money though. There is also a small chance to get special cargo which sells for a lot more. Since sourcing and selling the crates is done in free mode, other players are able to get in the way and destroy your crates, making you lose all your investment. With all the new content coming to free mode, it was about time that races got some more love. The Cunning Stunts added the new stunt races which really reinvigorated the racing and custom racing scene, with players who were already making some rather impressive custom races now having new tools at their disposal. While updates like this aren't always the most exciting, they are really important to help keep a large and important part of the GTA community alive. Following on from Cunning Stunts, we got the Bikers update released in October. As the name suggests, the update had a biker gang theme, with new clubhouses and biker clubs being added. Motorcycle clubs at their core act in a similar way to organisations, with other players being able to join them, but it doesn't mean there aren't some unique points to clubs. The club leader can assign roles which have different perks to club members, such as the vice president who can mark players as targets to kill, and the sergeant at arms who can drop molotovs. Some members of the club are able to set up riding formations, where players driving on motorbikes nearby each other get increased health and speed. The clubhouse offers a variety of different mini-games that the club can take part in, as well as a small bike-only garage. The meeting room has a large board which has a variety of jobs the gang can choose to do in free roam. These aren't the best way to earn money, but for a free roam based group activity, there is enough variety and the missions are fun enough to be worth doing. Several new illegal businesses, such as counterfeit money, can be purchased via a laptop found within the clubhouse. These businesses only require you to periodically steal or buy raw materials, and the business does the rest while you are off doing other things. This type of passive business can be useful to have as a background income, and the rate of production can be increased through purchasable upgrades. The final update of 2016 was Import-Export, which heavily featured what I find to be one of the most fun businesses. The vehicle warehouse business has players stealing expensive vehicles of 3 different tiers and then selling them off. What sets this business apart is just how fun it can be to drive around these expensive cars, some of which players may not have a chance to drive otherwise. You have to be careful driving them though, because when securing or selling the vehicles, all damage done to the vehicle is taken away from the profit you can make, which can be really frustrating since players can easily mess with you, and the AI, well, the AI is the AI. Being in a public online lobby on your own doesn't help either, since if there aren't enough players, the game seems to just continually spawn cars to attack you. Several of the new vehicles added, which can be stored in the vehicle warehouse basement, have unique features such as a rocket boost or a ramp, though one does have rocket launchers. These can actually be used in the new special vehicle work missions, which are just a fun little part of the update. 2017 showed a move away from having frequent updates to only having a few updates a year, but with most of the updates having a lot more content to them. The very first update of the year came in March with an expansion to the Cunning Stunts update from the previous year, for the special vehicle circuit. 20 new races were added, primarily for the special vehicles which had been added in the Import-Export update. There isn't really much to talk about here since it is mainly just races. The next update would not come out till June, when the gun running update was released, adding what I believe to be one of the best ways to make money. To start this business, you must first purchase a bunker to act as a base of operations. Bunkers have a range of different upgrades which can be bought, such as personal quarters and a shooting range. Once one has been bought, you can start doing missions to get supplies that will be turned into goods that can be sold. In this way, it functions in a similar way to the biker businesses, for players once again being able to get in the way. The biggest difference, however, is the option to not use the supplies to make sellable stock, but instead use it to research new technologies. Bunkers also act as a place to store the new Mobile Operations Centre, also known as the MOC. These were a first of their kind for GTA Online, with them being special types of upgradable trucks with a full interior that can be walked around in. The Mobile Operations Centre has 3 customisable bays, with the first bay starting as a living quarters, but that can be upgraded into a command centre, which offers a terminal that gives access to a turret to help defend the MOC. The second bay starts off empty, but can be upgraded to either have a living quarters or a weapon workshop, which allows you to modify your weapons. The third bay also starts empty, with the option to have a living quarters or a personal vehicle storage bay, which allows certain vehicles to be stored inside while driving around. A final bay option is the weapon and vehicle workshop, which takes up the second and third bays. Doing this allows you to upgrade the new weaponized vehicles which come in the update. In a similar way to what had been seen in previous updates, the MOC has a terminal which gives access to special missions, each of which make use of the new vehicles added in the update. And this is where the idea of the militarization of GTA Online really comes back into focus. Since the Heist update had been released, with the exception of the turreted limo, there hadn't really been any new weaponized vehicles before the Import-Export update, which had added a few. It was the gun running update, however, which really seemed to go all in again on the weaponized vehicles, though this time to upgrade them you needed a mobile operations centre. These vehicles once again threw the balance of GTA Online off the deep end, something which had been made even worse by the fact that almost every future big update to GTA Online would add new weaponized vehicles. Probably the most controversial of the new vehicles added with gun running was the Oppressor, which, because of its boost and gliding ability, was accused of being essentially a flying motorbike with lock-on missiles. If only we knew. If only we knew. 2 months after the initial release of gun running, the next update, Smuggler's Run, was released. While this update also had a lot of powerful military-level weaponized vehicles and a new business, what separates it from the gun running update, and really any similar update, was its heavy focus on the air. The business is another crate-based one, with it acting pretty much the exact same way as the previous crate-based business, added in further finance and felony. To start up the business, players need to buy one of the new hangars, with some of them even being in the military base. These hangars allow you to store the new air vehicles in them, and has an optional upgrade which allows you to actually customise these air vehicles. The missions to get the crates are rather fun, since they have such a heavy focus on air combat, and gives chance to fly the newer vehicles without having to purchase them. The biggest of the updates coming in 2017 was also the last one, with the Doomsday Heists coming in December. This featured 3 completely new heists, which were on a scale unlike the previous ones. Now, instead of having to do a few setup missions before being able to launch a heist, you need to do free roam based prep for those setups. Since these are in free roam, it of course means other players can choose to get in the way of your progress, or even steal it, which can be frustrating if you're in larger lobbies. Though you can choose to skip the prep for money, which obviously is not ideal. Instead of requiring a group of 4 players, this time around the heists can be done with anywhere from 2 to 4 players, which is a nice option to have. I'd also say the missions in heists are actually harder than those from 2015, which is something worth taking into account if you are doing them with only 2 players. To compensate for the increased difficulty and time required to do them, the payout is appropriately far higher, with the return of cash bonuses for completing challenges, such as completing them for the first time. An additional reward which is given for completing all 3 Doomsday heists is that the ability to remove wanted level becomes free. Instead of planning the heists from apartments, this time around it is required that the heist leader owns one of the new facilities scattered outside the city. The facilities have a decent amount of customization options, including new rooms. One of these rooms unlocks access to the orbital cannon system, which for a fee allows players to fire a one-hit kill shot once a day anywhere on the map. There was a prominent glitch on release which allowed players to more or less be able to fire the cannon as many times as they wanted. There is also a garage that comes with the facility, allowing players to store and modify vehicles such as the all-new Avenger. The Avenger is very similar to the Mobile Operations Centre, but being able to fly and without any missions launchable from it. The inside can be upgraded with an optional vehicle workshop and a separate weapon workshop. From the facility, the Avenger can also be modified and equipped with countermeasures, several turrets, and 4 types of bombs. The vehicle has a VTOL mode similar to the Hydra, allowing it to swap between handling like a plane or helicopter, with an autopilot mode which literally just keeps the Avenger hovering in one spot, allowing the pilot to walk around the inside or even leave in any vehicle stored in the vehicle bay. Of course, an update on this scale was bound to come with a lot of weaponised vehicles, some of which are far more powerful than others. 3 vehicles which particularly stick out are the Khanjali, the Stormberg, and the Deluxo. The Khanjali is a future tank, which is really just a souped-up version of the Rhino that can be upgraded to have better armour and performance. The main cannon can be swapped out for a railgun, which after being charged can fire faster, further, and stronger shots. The Khanjali can have a crew of 4 players, with the driver also manning the cannon. The 3 passengers can make use of the other weapons on the vehicle, with one player being able to man the top machine gun, which can be swapped out for a grenade launcher. The Stormberg is a vehicle which I at first thought was a bit redundant, with the main selling feature just being a gimmick. However, since I've come to appreciate it in its strengths, the Stormberg has lock-on rockets, similar to the Runa 2000 from the Import-Export update, but has a far higher rocket capacity, and having superior armour is able to take multiple missile hits head-on. The Stormberg is best known for its ability to turn into a submarine, which is a cool feature, but until the recent release of the Chaos Pericle heist, it didn't really have much purpose except for escaping players. The Deluxo is based off the DeLorean from Back to the Future, with it even having the same flight feature. The car has 3 different modes: land, hover, and flying. Hover mode allows you to glide across water and land, making it brilliant for taking a quick shortcut, but it isn't the best for travelling long distance on land due to its difficulty to control. Of course, the main reason to buy the Deluxo is for its flight mode. Speed-wise, it's rather slow, making it an easy target, something which isn't helped by the fact it can easily be taken down by a single missile. The Deluxo does also have the option to equip homing missiles, which is where its functionality really comes into play. When it comes to PvP, it's not the best, but for running businesses, it really is a solid pick, even if it would be outperformed by the Oppressor Mark II. Despite having less updates than previous years, 2017 was still a pretty big year for online. I'd say that if the second half of 2016 really laid the groundwork for the state of modern GTA Online, then 2017 was when it became concrete, with a lot of game-changing features and additions coming in the year. Just like the year before, 2018 started off with a race update through the Southern San Andreas Supersport series in March. Once again, there isn't really much to talk about, since it's mainly just races, though some of them were designed with the newer cars and planes from the Doomsday Heists and Smugglers run in mind. The second of the three updates of the year, After Hours, would not come until July 24th, with it introducing nightclubs to the game. Nightclubs act as another passive money-making business. Rather than doing missions to retrieve supplies, you instead do missions aiming to try and keep your club as popular as possible, to increase the amount of people going to it. There's a small amount of management options for the nightclub, which is always nice, though for me, the main reason I use the nightclub is for the warehouse. In the lower levels of the nightclub, there is room to store crates. To procure these specific crates, players must compete in a free roam business battle, which only starts randomly when at least 3 players are in a session. In the basement, there is room to store the brand new Terabyte, which looks like a baby mobile operations centre. The main selling point of the Terabyte is the terminal inside it, which allows you to source supplies for all your owned businesses without actually having to go visit them, massively streamlining the money-making process. It also has a scanner, which allows the driver to see the stats of other players, and a bay which lets you store and modify what is without a doubt the most controversial vehicle ever added to online, the Oppressor Mark II. The Oppressor Mark II is literally a flying motorbike with lock-on missiles. While the top speed of it isn't anything amazing, it has brilliant manoeuvrability, far better than the Deluxo, allowing it to make tight turns with ease, which when combined with its rocket boost and countermeasures, makes it excel at dodging incoming missiles. The vehicle has become a favourite go-to for people who want to troll on online lobbies, since it is rather hard to deal with if you are not prepared, and can be extremely frustrating to come across when you are just attempting to grind money through businesses. The final update of the year was Arena War, which aimed to add a twist on a traditional race update. Finally, the game made use of the arena in the city by turning it into a death arena, where you can purchase a garage and take part in a series of different, deadly vehicle-based races and missions. Personally, I really enjoyed the arena, since the races and vehicle missions inside are each fun and unique. Several weaponized vehicles were added, but honestly, none of them are really overpowered, and are just fun to drive around in. This is also where the 2 laser machine guns and the laser minigun were added, alongside the atomizer knockback pistol. To be honest, while the nightclub update is good, and the Southern San Andreas Super Sports series adds great content, personally, the Arena War was my favourite update of 2018. Technically, there would only be 2 main updates in 2019, but just like previous updates, they would be released with new vehicles and sometimes small content such as races in the weeks following the update, in order to try and keep players invested. This is especially true in the first of the 2 2019 updates, the Diamond Casino and Resort, where more than double the amount of vehicles would be added in the following weeks than the initial release. The update itself sees the old casino building by the racetrack completely revamped and given a full interior. Inside, players can gamble away their hard-earned money on a variety of different games and machines. There is also a large wheel which can be spun once a day for prizes. The main prize everyone wants from it is of course the car, which is changed regularly. Players who have a lot of money on hand are able to purchase a penthouse in the casino. These rather expensive homes can be upgraded to have a variety of expensive rooms, such as a spa room. Having a penthouse does come with some extra perks, such as free champagne and the ability to fast travel to set points, such as the airport from the casino. New casino jobs were introduced, alongside several new survivals, a few new races, and the new King of the Hill mode. The casino update, while adding a lot, was in fact more of an appetizer to the other big update of the year, the Diamond Casino Heist. This third new type of heist was once again unlike the others we had seen. While the casino heist lacks the grandiose scale of the Doomsday heists, it instead offers a new level of player freedom. Whereas the original heist required an apartment and the Doomsday ones required a facility, the casino heist requires an arcade. This functions not only as a base of operations, but also as a business, although, as a business, I find it kind of underwhelming, with the optional arcade cabinets not getting you much in the way of money for their cost, though they are fun to play. In the basement is where you plan the heist, with an optional expansion which unlocks a garage. Instead of having multiple heists, we technically only have the one, but it has 3 different approaches to it, being aggressive, the big con, and silent and sneaky. Each of the approaches has multiple options for getting through the heist. Before players decide which approach to take, they must first go to the casino and scope it out. This involves finding as many different access points and points of interest as possible to aid in the actual heist. This job can be returned to later if players missed any. With some help from Lester and a hacked guard's phone, you can see within the casino and its vaults to find out what is inside. There was initially three types of content: cash, art, and gold, but in 2020, as part of the returning Valentine's event, diamonds were added as an option. If the heist leader is willing to spend some extra money, they have some extras they can purchase for the planning room. The first of these is a model of the casino, with known access points shown with blue markers. The second extra is a bit more practical, with it allowing players to practice the hacking minigame required to get into some of the areas of the vault. The final option is a vault door. Once the prep is sorted, it is time to pick the approach and move on to the setup. One of the most important things to decide on the setup board is what support crew you will bring with you. There are 3 slots that need to be filled: a gunman, a driver, and a hacker. Each gunman will offer you 2 different loadouts, of which one must be chosen to give your crew for the heist. Each driver lets you pick between 4 different cars you can choose as a getaway vehicle, and each hacker gives you different amounts of time in the vault. The crew members don't work for free. If the better the member, the bigger the cut they will take. New crew members can be unlocked through free roam activities. There is a bunch of setup free roam missions. While some of them are not mandatory, doing them does make the casino significantly easier to rob. When players are ready, they can finally make the final preparations. This involves deciding what entry points will be used, as well as what exit will be taken. 2 more purchasable extras are available, both of them aiding in the getaway. One gives a clean getaway vehicle which, if all of the players get in at the same time, without the cops seeing, has their wanted level removed. The second is a decoy driver, who purposefully draws the attention of as many cops as they can, for as long as they can, making the early stages of the escape easier. There are 3 different options to sell the vault contents to, with the highest reward carrying the highest risk as they are the furthest away. Getting away with the loot is not an easy task, since each time you are shot, you lose money. Once outside, players must evade the police and make their way to their escape vehicles, or just steal a new one. When replaying the heist, one of your most recent approaches will be unavailable and one will be more dangerous, encouraging you to use all 3. The casino heist is an interesting case, because it showed a move towards giving players more freedom in the heists, rather than relying on heavily structured intense moments. Something which, as the new heist would suggest, is going to continue into future updates. The casino update would have new content continuing into 2020, primarily based around vehicles, such as with the open wheel races, something which has become normal for GTA. The first of the 2 major updates of the year came in July in the form of the Los Santos Summer Special. After the casino heist, this was definitely a more laid back update, with it having expansions to the open wheel races, with 8 new races and having a Diamond Adversary series added. My favourite new content in the update was the 6 newly added Super Yacht Life missions, which finally brought some new functionality to the yachts, and were genuinely just fun and enjoyable to play. Once again, the property limit was increased, this time to 8, and the ability to return a vehicle straight to storage was added. Finally, we come to what is, as of the time of this recording, the most recent update to the game, the Cayo Perico heist. Rockstar truly hyped this update up. Once again, we are given a new heist, but before we are able to begin it, players need to own a casino penthouse to give access to the new nightclub called the Music Locker, underneath the casino. After meeting with some very rich people, we are hired to procure some incriminating documents belonging to the island of Cayo Perico's owner, Juan Strickler. To be able to begin the heist itself, players must also purchase a large submarine. Adding one of these large submarines to the game is something which players had been asking for since the release of the Doomsday heists. The assumption for me at least was that if one of these were ever added, it would function in a similar fashion to the yachts, with it having set points around the map it stayed at. In reality, it ended up falling into a similar category to the MOC, Avenger, and Terabyte. Kosaka submarine is fully drivable, even if the controls can be a bit stiff at times, which may not be too bad for a vehicle of its size. Without any upgrades, the sub has a torpedo system and a lock-on missile launcher which can be manned from the periscope when above water. A guided missile system can be purchased, letting one player manually guide remote missiles, adding some extra defensive and offensive capabilities. When the Kosaka is underwater, it is basically impossible to detect. The only reliable way to find one is to use the submarine's purchasable sonar system. The sonar system does also allow for you to hunt for hidden treasure at the bottom of the ocean. 2 smaller vehicles can be bought that can be stored inside the submarine, with one being a small helicopter and the other a smaller submarine. Inside the submarine, there is a terminal which lets you plan out the heist. The first mission sees you pretending to be a tour manager to infiltrate the island. Once there, you are met by Juan Strickler himself, and after a small drive are left to join in on the party. After obviously having a few shots, it is time to sneak away and scout out locations on the island. Since all of our weapons are still on the plane we came in on, you have to sneak around the entire island trying to avoid being caught by the guards, and this is what makes the heist annoying for a lot of people. The stealth system in GTA has always been alright, but from my own experience can be somewhat unpredictable. It's probably at its most frustrating here, since if you are caught, you are sent all the way back to the party, separating you from other team members. While I'm sure this will be patched out rather quickly, when first playing the heist, we encountered a range of different bugs, one of which stuck my friend in a static loading screen for the hacked cameras, forcing us to restart. Once the primary objective has been found, players are left to explore the island to find as many optional targets as they can, since while we are coming for the documents, anything else we steal in the process of doing so is ours to keep. Returning to the mainland, several free roam prep missions are available, and just like the casino heist, not all of them are mandatory, but doing them does aid in the actual heist. When it comes to the heist, there are enough different approaches and optional vehicles to use that there is a decent amount of replayability, just like with the casino. This is also the first heist to allow for players to do it on their own without a group. However, doing so does mean you won't be able to get the full amount of secondary objectives. The heist wasn't the only new content added, with 3 new radio stations coming with the update, one of which can only be listened to in very specific parts of the city, until players go and deal with all 10 of the radio antennas on the map. Doing this not only gives rewards, but also reduces the cost of replaying the heist. And finally, we are at the end. At the moment this video comes out, there has not yet been any more updates, though of course, more are bound to come in the following years. I said at the beginning that GTA Online has since its release morphed into a completely different game, and right at the end here, I want to talk about that specifically. Any online game like GTA that is continually supported will always end up not being the same, and that's something which can be for the better or worse in some cases. I am fully aware that there are plenty of people who are not fond of what online has become, and I have seen people say they wished support for online would be cut, and the team moved to work on GTA 6 to get it out quicker. Something which, until really the last year, I didn't truly realise, is that all of these updates have added lots of new content, but they have also made it so that it is tough for new players to get a footing in the game. I will let you decide how you feel about that, and whether or not it is a bad thing. I will leave you with this then. GTA Online, regardless of the changes that has come to it, is one of the most interesting modern games to come out, and is certainly worth experiencing firsthand.